Hi, welcome to Car and Mechanical. Today I'm going to take you through the Motorpunk magazine launch and the Morgan factory tour walkabout that I went on. So Motorpunk magazine is a new magazine that's launched in the UK, and I backed it on Kickstarter after I found out about it from a friend, and one of the benefits of that was you got the factory tour. So as we make our way up from the car park up to the main factory itself and where everything's going on, I'm just going to show you some of the bits and pieces that you've got in store. And the freewheelers are absolutely great. I love looking at those. But we also got to see some of the readers' rides as such. There was a right old mix there, from a modified Micra that sounded like it was on a cam to M3s and all sorts. So what we're going to do, we're going to head up, and as we went in we were greeted by even more Morgans, a couple more readers' rides, and we were greeted by Rich and Daryl, the editors of the magazine, and we had some tea and biscuits and a look around the Heritage Centre before we got into the main meat of the day, which was the Morgan factory tour and finding out about the Motorpunk magazine. So with the Motorpunk magazine, I decided to sign up for this and for the magazine after being recommended it by a friend, and the ethos of the magazine is about cheap, affordable motoring. Now it's kind of like if you can afford an MX-5 or an old Z3 or something, great, but also just to have fun in what you're having fun in. And what the magazine appears to focus on is going to be looking at things like mental rentals. So these are cars that you could go across to Spain for the weekend, rent a car, tick all the insurance boxes, not worry about damage, and just have sort of a great weekend and then come back home for not much more than a couple of £100. They're also looking at things like Club 1830, so these can be articles about cars that are between the sweet spot of 18 to 30 years old. So cars that are quite fun to have. They can also be quite cheap, and as they get more towards that 30-year mark, that's when they start to go up in value, so the 1830 is the time to have the fun. And other things they're going to be doing with the magazine, it looks like they're looking to have a more honest approach to the write-ups in the magazine. And what is that to sort of say is that there's going to be less emphasis from the manufacturers to give favourable reviews, so they're looking to be a lot more honest and just talking about motoring in general. And where that kind of linked in with me is I enjoy the kind of budget side of motoring, not spending loads of money, not being tied into £200 to £400 a month car payments, so you can enjoy other things instead. So moving on then, we're going to start to look around the Heritage Centre, and what they had here is they had Aero 8s, they had the classic Morgan, I think maybe a Roadster. This blue one here I think is one of the early prototypes. Some of these other ones, the older ones, they use the mini headlights. I think they've now since changed. There was also a fair bit of memorabilia kicking about, and there's various bits from the Motorpunk guys going around as well. And as I said, you could have to sort of help yourself to free tea and coffee and biscuits, which was nice. And the car that really caught my attention most was this Aero Coupe right at the end. This, hands down, was probably my second favourite car of the day. If you want to know my favourite car of the day, wait till the end of the video, because I can't believe we end up seeing it. But this is stunning. Imagine coming out to your driveway every day and being able to drive that or just have it out there. It looks amazing. So as we were looking around, we were able to sort of get into the Morgans, have a look at them if you wanted. This I think is an early prototype of the Aero 8, and what's fantastic is just looking inside at the build quality, looking at the level work, looking at the stitching, the dash gear. It all looks really, really nice. There are a couple telltales of where they've had to use parts binned bits, but I still think they look great. So we moved on into two groups. One of the groups went on to the magazine introduction, and the other group went on to the factory tour, which we're on here. So we got taken around the factory in various stages of build, and it was just great to see all of these kind of engines. So Morgans use 4 engine types, or 5 if you include the 3-wheeler. So use the BMW V8, which we're looking at here, and they put their own badge on there as well, which was kind of cool to see. They also use a 3.7 litre V6 or 3.6 litre. They use a 2 litre inline 4 and they use a 1.6 litre inline 4. And the powers of those go from 110 to 150, somewhere in the 200s on the V6, and 367 to 370 on the V8. And all of these are going in cars that weigh from 795 kilos to 1,180 kilos. So you can imagine they are fairly quick. So what we get to see as we're walking around here is we get to see kind of the factory setup, and it's almost like workstations. Each car's being worked on in its own area, and it's not like on an assembly line where they're being rolled down. They're worked on and then they're moved on, and they're kind of built up with all of their panels. Now, one of the key things with Morgan, if you weren't already aware, is the chassis are metal, but the frame and the body that goes over them is ash wood. So the ash wood makes up the frame, and then the metal panels are placed on top, or they're kind of bent and beaten into place. and you end up with these fantastic hand-built cars that they're not really sort of made to sort of digital measurements like you see in an Aston Martin factory in my previous video that I did a few years back. These are done by hand and to eye. It's absolutely amazing sort of stuff. Now, one of the things that is done sort of more mechanically is all of the body panels are made with that press there. And then we look at all of the frames that have been made. So all of these have been done by hand. And this one press here has been in Morgan for over 80 years. They said it's kind of the only one they had and they wouldn't know what they did otherwise. I'm guessing they have a spare, but there you go. And you just kind of go around, and this looks like something out of my kind of secondary school in the sort of the woodworking workshop. Obviously on a much bigger, better scale, but I thought it was really interesting. And you've got these handmade dashes. And then we go on to something unexpected, was a 3D printer. And they mentioned that although they do everything kind of handmade, it is still useful to be able to rapidly prototype something because if it's cheaper, it's a lot less effort, and they can find out what works. And it was interesting to sort of see these FDM models here as well. So we move on next to seeing the cars more in a closer to a finished state, and we start to see kind of the body panels attached to them and painted and the leather being added to the inside. And we start to get more of a feel of what these cars are going to look like when they are finished. And what was really interesting is apparently these cars are available in up to thousands of colours. So of course the order book sees maybe 10 typical colours and then you don't see the others used too much, but you do occasionally get to see something amazing, as we'll go into in a minute. But I really like the leather work that you see in that. I think if you were driving that, you'd just be having the time of your life sitting around all of that quality, something so light and potentially so quick depending on the engine configuration. So these cars here are kind of ready to go and be tested, but we're going to move on to the finishing area in a minute. And we get to start seeing more of the three-wheelers, and the more and more I saw these, the more I started to fall in love and started to want one. I need to find £30,000 for one, but I'll worry about that when I need to buy one. So these are where the cars are being put under lamps to kind of check for any defects, make sure the paint is all good. And you can see some of the more interesting colour schemes that I mentioned. This Morgan 8 three-wheeler looked absolutely great. I love the choices that the person that's ordered this has made. I think it looks absolutely spot on. And we can go around in a second and we'll see some of the three-wheeler shells being ready to be made up as well. So I don't know if these are ready to go onto an actual chassis or if they're kind of something else. And then we got this car here. I thought this burnt amber was great on this Aero 8. I'd love to see it kind of out on the road just to see how it does look. And also moving on and looking at more of the chassis, we can see the V8, how it actually looks in the engine bay. And it's so tight. I don't know how you do any maintenance on that. I guess if you can afford one of these cars, that's not really the point. So where we moved on to after this was the three-wheeler build area. Now this was really cool because we got to learn various things about the three-wheelers. I already knew they were a V-twin, but you get to sort of see how they're built up, you get to see underneath them. I thought it was interesting that with the pedals that they were straight onto the slave and the master cylinder, there was no kind of line really taking it there. I thought it was really cool to kind of see some of the differences between different models. So in some countries you need to have longer indicators, and in others it's not an issue. It was nice to see the clamshell off and to sort of see the rear wheel here. And this is almost like a double-sided car steely, so you can kind of see from both sides. It's like your steel wheels that you get on a car. But normally this is completely hidden, so you don't normally get to see that. Other things they were taking us through as well with these was that the intakes have to meet Euro 4 standards, and as I was mentioning with the indicators, they have to be sort of a certain width, and we'll see one in a minute. But that's as Morgan have to sell them. It's not to say that the owners have to keep them in the same way. So the intake does restrict power a bit. So it probably wouldn't surprise you to learn that people make those indicators the shorter version, and maybe sometimes they change the intake to free things up a little bit. Okay guys, so we are pretty much at the end of the video. Now, I said that the Aero Coupe at the beginning was my second favourite car of the day. My first favourite car of the day was this. I cannot believe that we saw a Jag XJ220 on the way home. This was filmed by my friend on his phone. Now we tried to stay with it for a little bit. That thing is quick. And also they're stupidly rare. There's only about 220 of them ever made. I don't know how many are left on the road, but that was absolutely awesome to see. So we're going to end this video with saying check out the Motorpunk website, the link is down below. Check out the Morgan website, they offer the tours. I think it's about £20-ish per person, so if you're ever in the Morgan area you can go and check that out. It's really cool. I just want to say thank you for the Motorpunk guys for putting the day on. I really enjoyed chatting to them, I really enjoyed chatting to other people at the event as well. And with that, that's the end of the video. So thanks very much for watching, guys. If you did make it this far, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed everything, including the Motorpunk stuff and the Jag. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. Please share it with anyone that you think would find this interesting. And more than anything, thank you for watching.